Hello and welcome back to Holt Hanley Weather. There's been a big change with Winter Storm Odell in the Midwest, so let's take a look at what that change is. As you can see, this is the forecast run yesterday morning. If you watched my forecast video, you remember the big story was Chicago. They were going to get over 6 inches of snow, maybe even a foot, biggest snowstorm of the season. Well, look what happened just by yesterday afternoon's run. All of a sudden, Chicago went from 7 inches to 2 inches, and you see those heaviest snowfall accumulations starting to move south. Let's take a look at Springfield. They originally had 3, St. Louis you had 0.8, and then by the afternoon, Springfield you had 5, St. Louis you're 1.5 inches. And the same story is showing up in today's model run. This is the morning run for Tuesday, and that heavy snow accumulation has really started to move even farther south. Fort Wayne, you had less than 1 inch originally, now you're getting more than 5 inches. And the reason for this is likely because of the winds. The winds are a lot stronger than originally expected, and they're coming straight from the north. We'll take a look at that in a minute. I just want to remind you of the big story going on with this one. It's the 2 separate lows that are interacting differently with this storm going through the Midwest. This low right here is the one that's bringing in the moisture, but it is also bringing in a little bit of warm air right here. That's why some of those accumulations farther east are more of rain than of actual snow. This is the one that's bringing in the large snow accumulations. You can see that cold Arctic air, that purple coloring, that's the one that's going to move through into the Midwest, and that's the one that's bringing these higher accumulations in the 5 to 8 inch range. And then that one is going to move up and hit the Northeast. The big story with this one is actually probably in the Northeast. As we'll look at some of those numbers, it's looking good up there. Let's take a look at the precip type and rate for the Midwest. This is showing right now. As you can see, that low, the weaker one, kind of that mini little trough that was sitting in there, that's bringing in that warm air on the right side, so that's mostly rain right there. Some snow starting to show up on the western side of Illinois, and then as that moves through, it's basically light accumulations and mostly rainfall. As that second trough comes in, we're going to start to see this snow in Illinois really start to spread throughout the region. And like I said, it's farther south than it was originally showing. You see it fill in. This is Wednesday at about 12 a.m. and that swath of snow is basically going from Missouri all the way up to Michigan. Well, that's going to continue, and you get some higher rates in central Illinois and Indiana. Yesterday, those highest rates were up here. Now they're down here. There's a couple bullseye areas where you're getting 5 to 8, but for the large majority of the region, it's in that 1 to 3 inch range and 3 to 5 inch range. That's one other thing. The models earlier were showing more snow. Now they're showing a little less. And it's probably because we're getting farther away from the Great Lakes, so you get less of that lake effect snow that can really drive up accumulations. Let's take a look at this wind now. Here it's showing right now, it's already coming in pretty fast, and as that second trough fills in, you're going to see these wind streams just continue to speed up, and especially over the Great Lakes. And that's actually creating a flooding concern around this entire region. If you don't know, the Great Lakes right now are 38 inches above average. They're at a record high. They're actually 6 inches above the record high before this season. So that's creating flooding concerns because all this wind that's going to push the water and bring in just a lot of erosion and flooding concerns to this area. The other thing it's doing, that wind, as we've seen, is kind of pushing this storm farther south. And take a look at this blue line right here. That represents the freezing line. As of Tuesday, at Tuesday night tonight, that freezing line has really started to move farther south, and that trend continues as this low moves off. If you think about the circulation around a low, it's counterclockwise. So on the left side of the low, that's where it's bringing this cold air down, and you'll see these temperatures in Minnesota and Wisconsin, they really start dropping as this Arctic air continues to push south, getting down to temperatures like 17 degrees, 23 degrees in Green Bay. That's pretty cold. And then that cold air is going to move up into the northeast. So let's take a look at the 24-hour accumulated snowfall as it moves through. Right now, Springfield, it's showing that by Tuesday night, this evening, you're going to be getting 3 inches. Now remember, yesterday, that bullseye was right over Chicago. Now, it's farther south. That's the big change in the models, along with the lowered accumulations. Unfortunately for all you snow lovers out there. So let's see, as this moves through, you see the bullseye is now in central Illinois. This is Wednesday at about 12 p.m. And that bullseye that was over Chicago is now over kind of central Illinois. And then it's going to move into northeastern Indiana and northwestern Ohio. The forecast for Detroit has been pretty interesting to look at. Originally, they were getting less than an inch. Now, 4 inches, 4.8. Let's see if they break 5. Oh, maybe they'll break 5. There's a chance. And then you see that little bullseye of 5 to 8 inches in northern Ohio and southern Michigan. If this trend continues, though, that could move even farther south. Fort Wayne, that's the interesting one. They had less than an inch originally. Now it's showing up over 5 inches. That's the big story right there. It's moved south, and let's take a look at the northeast. So the big story with the northeast, they get a lot of that extreme winds as well, but it's interesting to look at where the energy for this one's coming from, because the northeast has actually gotten way better than originally expected. Some of the models, even just yesterday, were saying max 5 to 8 inches in the northeast. Well, just wait for what they're showing now. And the reason is this energy that is getting pulled down from Canada into this big trough. Something I love to look at on these maps is it's showing lines of constant pressure, the isobars. And when you have a big trough like this, and the isobars are closer together on the west side of the trough, see how close they are right here and how far apart they are right here. That means that the trough is going to get stronger. It's going to bring a bunch of energy in, and then as that energy moves up the right side of the trough, that's when you get huge snow accumulations, as we'll see. So that energy comes down, you can watch it move around the trough axis right here, and then come and hit the northeast. I just love that map. This is showing vorticity. That's the curl of the winds. And if you don't know what that means, it's basically just how much winds are turning. Straight winds, no vorticity. Curving winds, vorticity. And when they're curving in a cyclonic motion counterclockwise, that's when you get really big storms and lots of storm development. And you'll see that just blows up over the northeast, and we'll see some of the accumulations associated with that energy that originally got pulled down from Canada. So right now, they're just getting that little mini trough that we were looking at earlier. That's just going to bring in rain. You look at the low, it's over 1,000. Nothing too special. And it's bringing in that warm air from the Gulf Stream, really keeping this one in the rain category. A couple places might get snow, like western New York. By about Wednesday morning, northern New York, you're getting a little Vermont, maybe a dusting of snow, less than an inch per hour. And then that one moves off and the real storm comes in. That's at this point that energy's moved down and has moved up into the northeast. Well, as you can see, heavy rainfall rates. This is by Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. That's when this storm really starts to move into the northeast. And take a look at those rainfall rates. You got 0.4 inches per hour. And it's also interesting to look at this low. It's 1,000 millibars. But as we're going to see, that's going to continue to drop. As of early Thursday morning, the snow line almost perfectly stays out of the United States. And then that's finally going to start moving through Thursday at about 1 a.m. You see that low right there, and this is a perfect map that shows that counterclockwise circulation around a low. On the right side, it's bringing in that warm air from the Gulf Stream. But I know that sounds terrible to you snow lovers out there. Oh, the warm air is ruining my snowfall. But what happens when you bring warm air in is then the warm air rises and creates a bunch of clouds, which when the cold air moves in behind the low, those clouds drop precip, and then it falls as snow because that cold air has been able to move through. This is showing Thursday at 7 a.m., and this is when the bulk of the storm is hitting. Northern New York, you guys are getting over 0.2 inches per hour of snow. Same story for Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Really, the big accumulations with this one are going to be in New Hampshire and Maine, where over a foot is forecasted. You can see those heavy accumulations continue for Maine throughout Thursday, and then this low is finally gone on Friday. And you see that low, as it's moving through, that dropped down to 989. That's a lot better than the models were showing yesterday, so we'll see if this trend can continue. 2 days ago, they were showing it was still above 1,000. Yesterday it was about 995, now it's showing 989. So if that trend continues to go down, well, we could see some huge accumulations. And we actually are going to see some huge accumulations. If this low were to hit on Thursday at 1 a.m., well, the low does hit. And remember, this is when the rain was coming in. You get all this warm air advection, as we were talking about, and basically everywhere was getting rain except for western New York, where snow was starting to come in. Well, you can see why. Those winds are bringing the cold air in. But something interesting happens as that low moves up. You see it continues to bring in the cold air from northern Midwest and Canada, just an Arctic blast of cold air. And then as that fills in throughout Thursday, you see the entire Northeast is now covered in that cold blue Arctic air. And this is when the biggest accumulations are happening. You can see the temperatures in Vermont through New Hampshire and Maine, you're all below freezing. Especially, what's that word? Lebanon, 19 degrees. And as that low moves off, cold air continues, high snowfall rates. So let's see some of the accumulated snowfall as it comes through. See, the large majority of these accumulations are up north of the Northeast. We'll see if that bullseye can move a little farther south. But by Friday morning, New Hampshire, you've accumulated over a foot of snow. Maine, over a foot of snow. Let's take a look at the totals for the storm. Parts of northern New York, higher elevation places, you could be getting over a foot of snow with this one, at least double digits. New Hampshire and Maine, that's where the bullseye of this one's hidden. Over a foot, 12 to maybe a foot and a half, 12 inches to a foot and a half of snow. Another big thing, areas along the coast, you got too much of that warm air advection. You stay out of the snowfall range. That's really been the case this entire winter. That warm air pushing in has just been too much and it's ruined your guys' snowfall. I'm going to continue to do updates for the storm throughout the coming days. It hits Thursday, so I'll be able to get 2 more videos in before this one actually hits, and the models will continue to improve. In fact, by the time you're watching this video, I've maybe already made another forecast video, so check out my forecast playlist. And if you like daily weather forecasts and following the weather, follow Holt Hanley Weather on YouTube. Thanks for watching.